Hi, I'm Bob Orr, and this is Washington Unplugged. Today we're going to talk about Afghan politics and the effect on U.S. policies. You may know that President Hamid Karzai has now been again declared the winner after his challenger Abdullah dropped out of the presidential race, and then the runoff election was abruptly canceled. So some questions. What does this mean for Afghanistan and for the security of the Afghan people? Furthermore, how will Karzai's re-election impact the war and President Obama's pending decision on sending more troops? With me today to talk about all of this and more is Teresita Schaffer of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and also Chris Isham, our bureau chief here at CBS News in Washington. Teresita, let's start with you. Can this result be viewed as legitimate?
You know, the election will not have given Karzai the legitimacy he was seeking to get out of that. To get legitimacy at this point is going to depend on how he does his job. It's a different kind of legitimacy. It's not electoral. It can be just as meaningful in the medium to long term, but that requires that he become a much more effective governor of Afghanistan.
Chris, why did the International Commission pull the plug on this? Why not go ahead and have the election, let the people have their say?
Well, it would have been an absurd election because Abdullah had pulled out. Everybody knew that he'd pulled out. Karzai would have been racing against nobody, so it would have been an absurd election. I think that actually the administration and the Afghans have dodged a bullet on this one because my own view is that if they had gone ahead and run the runoff and conducted this runoff coming Saturday the 7th, I think they would have had a lot of problems with security, with bad weather. It's gotten colder, low turnout, and I think that that probably would have been additional fraud. And I think the results of that election could very well have been just as bad as the first one and would have lent even less credibility to Karzai. So this actually may be a good outcome.
But he has a government, though, that is undermined by fraud. The violence has been upticking. The security of the people is in question. Teresita, what does he have to do, Karzai now? What does he have to do to maintain the legitimacy or to establish that?
It's establish is the right word. What he has to do is, in the first instance, improve security. Secondly, he has to preside over a situation, over a system in which more government happens at the provincial and lower level. That doesn't just depend on him personally, but it does depend on how he manages his relations with the key figures at the provincial level.
And what is the message to the insurgents, the people that are trying to upset the balance of life there, Chris? What is the message here?
Well, I think the message has got to be that Karzai is going to be serious about better governance, and this I think is what Teresita is getting at here, is that the problem with the Karzai administration is just they have not been good at governing. People don't trust them, they think they're corrupt, and he has got to show people that he can govern, and that he can at least provide good governance to some of the areas where they've been invisible and where they've been regarded as totally corrupt, and that's got to be a sea change there. And if people start to perceive that, then the Taliban will get much less momentum. I mean, that's the hope.
Now this, of course, comes at a time when we're still waiting for the president to tell us whether or not he's going to send more troops and how many troops. What effect does the outcome of this election or non-election have on the president's decision?
Well, it makes clear what he's going to be dealing with. So that's no longer an uncertainty. But the decision is not just about troops. It's also, and even more importantly, about strategy. What is it that will be the mission of the U.S. and of the U.S. military in Afghanistan? And that's where the debate is, and that really is the critical decision before you get to the troops.
We're still following this counterinsurgency model where General McChrystal is trying to improve the security for these small towns and villages. Is it working?
Well, I think that the view is that he doesn't have enough troops, so that in places where we have surge troops, such as in Helmand province, there are good indications that it is starting to work. Populations are more secure, shops are opening, people feel more secure, life starts to come back to normal. But there are huge parts of the country where we simply aren't there, and those places have gotten probably worse. So that's the basis on which McChrystal is asking for additional troops. I don't know. I think that the question is, do we have enough troops to do what it takes to secure this enormous country with this really daunting geography and this very powerful insurgency? That's the question I think the administration is wrestling with now.
Now, the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan this morning congratulated President Karzai. We're still waiting, though, for new White House reaction. But here's what senior Obama advisor David Axelrod said yesterday on Face the Nation about Abdullah's withdrawal from the race.
He made a political judgment, and I thought that his remarks today were rather moderate. He left open as to whether his supporters should participate in the process, and he's establishing himself as a leader of the opposition. But every poll that had been taken there suggested that he was likely to be defeated anyway. So we are going to deal with the government that is there. And obviously there are issues we need to discuss, such as reducing the high level of corruption there. These are issues we'll take up with President Karzai.
Issues that the White House want to take up with President Karzai. He mentions corruption, Teresita. What are the other big issues?
Security, the effectiveness with which he can get the Army stood up. Policing, absolutely critical. The Afghan police is an even bigger problem area than the Army. And just the business of establishing a viable government presence out beyond the Afghan equivalent of the Beltway.
And one more thing about the troops, Chris. We keep waiting for this decision. It's been a couple of months now since the numbers were floated. The president's been accused by some Republicans of dithering, I think was one word. When are we going to see something, and how important is this timetable becoming?
Well, it's quite important. There were some reports over the weekend that are still not confirmed that indicate that this decision may now not come until after the president returns from Asia, which would be in a couple of weeks, around November the 20th. We had been expecting it to happen next week, around the 7th or 8th of November. So, yeah, this is something that the world is watching. Obviously, it's a process that the president is taking very, very seriously. He's conducting numerous National Security Council meetings and meetings with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and other experts inside and outside of the government. So it's something that he is being very deliberative about. But as we've said before, the risk in this is that it is interpreted as a lack of resolve or a lack of tenacity, as some have said, in the administration. I think that the delay, the longer it goes on, it can be interpreted by people on the ground as a failure of resolve inside the White House. And that's the risk that they run in taking their time and doing this. On the other hand, it is a commitment of American blood, it's American treasure, it's a massive investment for the United States, and we obviously want to get it right.
Pretty clearly, though, the clock is ticking. I think General McChrystal said he's got 12 months to turn this around if he can. And then there's some questions about the math, because it's not even certain the troops could get there quickly enough. What is your sense of the timetable, the criticality?
I attach less importance to the timetable and more importance to, after the decision, the administration's really taking ownership of the decision and forging ahead with determination and effectiveness to put in place whatever strategy they decide on. Yeah, everybody's watching the timetable, but the key thing is once he makes a decision, he's got to own that decision.
Okay. Chris Isham from CBS News, thanks. Teresita Schaffer, thanks for coming over from CSIS. And thanks to you for watching Washington Unplugged. Watch us here every weekday at cbsnews.com at 12:30 in the afternoon. I'm Bob Orr. Have a great Monday.